Greetings, folks. This is Scott with the Game Audio Institute, and we are continuing our lovely journey into scripting and dealing with audio in the Unity system. And where we left off, we were dealing with a little bit of the reverb zones. And there's lots of reverb zones. There's, you can do all kinds of really cool stuff with them. You can put them on the side in your game, and they're really, really nice. However, there is a problem with them. That is that because they are spherically shaped, they don't really work well in situations in which you are inside a room or a hallway or anything like that. And that's because basically most of the room shapes are square or at right angles or things like that. They're very rarely any kind of spherical shape. So this is, give you an idea of like where we're at as far as this is concerned here inside the game. Take a look over here. So I have like a reverb zone, technically speaking, and I'm going to basically just make the size of my sphere as if my reverb zone was the sphere. So let's just take a look over here. Okay, so here is the sphere, the square shape that we're going to be having to deal with. Okay, here is the sphere. So, and the sphere is right over here, so we can basically move that over. Let's get a little bit closer. And it's going to be a little tricky because kind of want to maybe rotate it a little bit there. Yeah, let's rotate it a bit. Okay, and then we can basically stick it in. So now what's happening is, okay, let's just say that's a reverb zone, right? Well, we can make it as big as we want, right? If we want to. Let's say we're trying to create like a sort of tubey sounding reverb or whatever like that as we walk through this sort of little tunnel area. So as you can see, well, what you could do is you might be able to manage several of these objects, not just one. So you'd have to duplicate them a bunch, right? And in order to be able to get a reverb zones that would cover exactly the area, the actual area of your room, essentially. But as you can see, it does not cover the corners. So this is probably not a huge deal, and you can sometimes get around this in the sense of the minimum and maximum distances. So you can create, say, a minimum distance situation which might kind of go a little bit outside and has slightly reverb characteristics, and then or a maximum, I should say, maximum distance that has, a larger area around, and then a minimum distance that's kind of smaller on the inside. But as you can see, this is the problem. If you try to do the one object for a square room, it's really, really difficult because at that point, if you're really trying to do a square room with a sphere shape, you're either going to have a situation where none of the corners are covered at all. So imagine this being a big cube-shaped room or whatever, and you have one reverb zone for the whole room. Again, some of these things are, the reverb zones are reasonably forgiving because of that minimum maximum distance sort of adjustment period. So it's not perfect, but it's you can kind of get it to the point where you can kind of fool the ear into sort of thinking that things are going on. But if you want to be, like a substantial purist, that's not going to work that well. So let's just say you wanted to cover every single area. Well, okay, we could maybe scale it up so it covers the whole area. Oh, sorry, I didn't do that quite right. I want to do it in the center. Yeah, so then what happens is you can have it so it covers the whole area, but then in that case, if it covers the whole area, then you can see it's sticking out on the sides, which means that if you were to walk by here, you would potentially trigger the reverb, which is totally incorrect, and you can't do that. So you'd probably have to have some kind of situation where you were basically working with both of these objects. I mean, you can certainly push it a little bit in. And you can see the sphere is not a great shape because it means that, you don't get an immediate, get these kinds of gradual sort of sounds, essentially, okay? So, as you can see, a reverb zone is not the most ideal shape when you're dealing with an indoor, kind of reverb space. It's just simply not ideal for these sorts of things. So, what do you do in that case? So, what we're going to do is we're going to mess around with something. We're going to basically use the mixer, and we're going to use snapshots. And there is a video. We have done a video previously covering the audio mixer, so this is not going to really cover too much of that. But we will sort of talk about how to handle reverb zones inside the game. And basically, in that case, you'll want to have already created a mixer. And as you can see, I already have created a mixer at this point in time. Now, in this particular case, what you'll want to do is, even though this is called test reverb, this is the sound from, I think, my footsteps that are coming in through here. So I'm going to make it so that basically when I walk through, let me think about this. When I walk through about here, maybe I'll have a different reverb zone or a couple of reverb zones or something like that. It's a little tricky. And again, when you have this kind of stuff, it's a little bit on the sort of, what do you want to call it? Potentially, what's the word that I'm thinking of? It won't be completely accurate, in other words, because this is not totally enclosed nor totally not enclosed. It's sort of somewhere in between the two. Maybe I'll just do this room. I think this is probably a better option. So for this, what I'm going to probably end up doing is I'm going to first create myself a trigger area. And the best way to do that, really, is just start yourself with a cube. You can potentially just create a blank game object and then add a collider to it if you want to. But a cube automatically comes with a collider, so that's a pretty good, safe bet to deal with. So here's my cube, and it was not placed in the right place, so we're going to bring it forward here. Here it is, and of course it's doing the old weird rendering thing, so we're just going to do that blend probes thing that we just talked about before last time. Take those off. That's really important. Yeah, take that mesh render, hit the light probes, and turn them off. It's very confusing as a shape otherwise. So anyway, we're going to do this. We're going to biggen it and make it larger. Okay. And get it to basically more or less cover the inside shape of our area. And then, of course, we're going to probably turn the mesh renderer off because we do not really want to actually just walk through the thing. But it's just useful from a placement standpoint, size standpoint, that kind of thing that you can kind of just sort of see, okay, well, does this cover this area decently enough? That kind of stuff. So you can kind of basically get around here. So in this particular case, we can, it's kind of going a little bit high there. So we'll just change some characteristics, make it not quite so high. And yeah, that's probably good enough overall. And what we'll want to do is we'll want to basically, now there is a box collider. We want to make sure that that is trigger component is turned on. We also want to make sure the mesh renderer is turned off. That way, when we walk through, you don't see it, but it will be there. When you walk through here, it will register that we have something going on. And honestly, this is probably a better way to handle it a little bit than reverb zones. Reverb zones are not bad, but they're going to be a situation where there's no way to regulate them on the mixer effectively. So there's no separate, send from reverb zones that goes to the mixer as far as I have been able to determine. So in this particular case, though, we're going to be able to do that. And we're going to do that through something called the snapshot. We do need to kind of prepare the ground a bit, and we do need to make ourselves an insert effect, kind of like an aux effect, essentially. So we're going to basically just create another group here on the mixer, and we're just going to call that one reverb. So that's going to be the reverb sound. And we are going to have to be able to send reverb, out there if we want to, in order to make this happen. So the reverb zone is essentially just going to be a plugin. So essentially we're going to go over here to our add effect button, and we'll just put in a reverb, SFX reverb. And as you can see, the controls are pretty much identical to what we just saw in the reverb zone. They're pretty much the same things. Only thing it doesn't have is it doesn't really have the preset management, so it's just going to be sort of manual. But the idea is that you could run any number of sounds through this, and you could have these kinds of reverbs. And you could have multiple sends of different kinds, stuff like that, if you needed to do that. So, but in this particular case, we're going to go and check this all out. And there is that. And so basically what it's going to happen is we're going to have this test reverb. And what we need to do is add another effect here, and that is going to be a send. So we're going to add a send effect. You can't quite see it. It's sort of hanging off the edge, but there it is. And the receiver is going to be none. We need to have a receiver effect on the reverb, as well as the plugin. So we go to the reverb, and we are going to need a receive, which is the second one down there. Okay? And now that's there. And it says no send source is connected, but that's fine, no problem. We're going to move that up so it's at the top before the reverb. And then we're going to go click test reverb, and we're going to say the receiver is actually the reverb receive. And then we can create the send level here. Now, this is where we're going to be doing our thing. So here's our thing. We're going to actually create a snapshot. As you know, snapshots are pretty much the way to do things in games because there's no time, sort of happening inside a game, essentially, right? That's the idea. So because there's no time really happening inside a game, or time is very relative, I should say, right? The idea is, how much game time is going on or whatever. So the idea is that it's action related. So actions are perfect for snapshots, right? So the idea ends up being, okay, when you get to the place, it doesn't matter when you get to the place, but you walk through the thing and then it's going to trigger the snapshot. The snapshot is the position of all those different controls at that exact point in time. And then we can basically, at any point in time, when we have the action, we can switch over to the other snapshot. So in this particular case, what we're going to do is I'm going to create we already have ourselves a snapshot called snapshot here, but I'm going to call this, in room. In room. Oh, sorry, it's sort of inner room there, but anyway, that's it. In room. So that snapshot is going to have the send level increasing or increased. And so then that basically is going to so we're preparing the ground essentially for what we need to do essentially for this sort of stuff to happen. So once we do this and then we walk through here, it will basically switch over to there. But unfortunately, because it's Unity, we can't do this without having to write a script in the process. So we'll start this up a little bit here, and we'll see how far we can get, because it's we're getting kind of running out of time here. So for that, you'll want to basically create a new script, and you'll stick it on our cube. Is this our cube? Yeah, this is our cube, I think. Yeah, that's the one. Turn the mesh render off. So I'll call this reverb actually, just so I have this, reverb room, essentially. Okay, so reverb room, all right? And now this basically is going to essentially get everything ready effectively. So we're going to click add component. Our component is going to be a new script, and our new script is going to be called reverb trigger. That's what it's going to be called. And it's really not too complex, but, we'll see how fast we can do this. We are going to have to do some stuff here and make it work, but let's just see what happens with that. So basically the deal in this particular case is, we can go here, and if we go here, now we're editing the things. We don't need start, we don't need update. Okay, but we do need this. We need what's called using Unity Engine .audio. Very important, because this is a very specific thing hooked up to the Unity audio engine. All right, so basically the deal in this case is now we're going to declare what's called a public snapshot. But it's called an audio mixer snapshot. That's what it's called. It's a really long thing. So you'll say audio mixer snapshot and call this, say, outside. Okay? And then I'm going to do another one here. I'm going to call this public audio mixer snapshot inside. Now, we're not totally done yet by any means, but we are going to have to probably get really close here. Next thing that we're going to do is we will do just like, remember our trigger thing, right? It's going to be void. Remember, it doesn't return anything. It's just going to be called void on trigger enter. Okay, and that is the deal. Void on trigger enter. And then what we will want to do is we will want to make a transition between the two. And then we'll probably also want to have an on trigger exit. So this is going to be quite similar to the one that we did where we're doing that momentary trigger, right? If you remember that momentary trigger video we did. So we'll say on trigger exit. All right. So that's about all we have time for at this point. We're going to save this as it is, but this is basically what will get us going for the next time. So we will see you in the next one. I hope this has helped you out a little bit. We're going to keep going with this stuff. And we're also going to show how the snapshots can do all kinds of cool things on the mixer. And you can arrange them to happen inside games and stuff like that, and manage your audio in all kinds of cool ways using snapshots. If we have enough time, we might be able to even cover a little bit of occlusion, which is super awesome and fun. So until next time, I hope this helps you get your game audio on. And if you're interested in all this kind of stuff, leave a comment, leave a like, share, subscribe, do all of the typical things. We have a Patreon if you want to contribute to that and support us making more of these awesome videos. And until then, I hope you're doing well, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.